The contribution you make in the housing fund is not a tax. Kenya, that housing is going to be a big part of our plan, not just to provide houses, but to create opportunities for employment and for enterprises to grow. Mambo matatu yafanyike.
Is it true that Kenya is copying Singapore in its housing program? Hello and welcome to Jedika Media. My name is Caleb Korir. Let's have a look at Kenya's housing program and see if President William Ruto is copying Singapore's housing model and if this model is applicable in Kenya.
The Kenyan government had introduced a 3% housing levy while drafting the 2023-2024 budget. However, they later reduced it to 1.5% of gross monthly salary of all Kenyans in formal employment. Of course, this proposal had sparked a controversy as to why Kenyan government is introducing more taxes or deductions. This housing levy took effect on July of 2023.
How then is President William Ruto mimicking or copying Singaporean model? But first, let's listen to what he had to say in a church service in Nairobi that points out to this.
Sisi tulianza na watu wa Singapore. Mbona sisi tulianza na watu wa Korea walikuwa kama sisi? Lakini wao sasa wako first world. Sisi bado tuko nyuma. Tofauti ya wao na sisi ni maamuzi ya uongozi. That is the difference. Hatuwezi kwenda mbele kama vile walivyoenda mbele kama hatuko tayari kuamua vile walivyoamua. Mnanielewa? Wao waliamua ya kwamba kuna vile watafanya mambo. And that is why they are where they are today.
Yes, it's all about decisions made by leaders, or put it plainly, poor decisions made by Kenyan leaders. Now let's see how Singapore financed their housing projects.
Let's get into a history class for a moment. Singapore gains its independence in 1965, 2 years after Kenya gains its independence from the British colonial powers. But
in 1960, before Singapore broke away fully from Malaysia to be an independent state, their first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew set up a housing and development board to build houses for Singaporeans living in slums. It was mandated to build housing units for the poor who were living in the slums. This board had a very hard time convincing people to vacate their informal settlements and live in public houses. However, something unusual happened which changed everything. In 1961, a fire broke out in one of the informal settlements called Bukit Sui, killing several people and leaving 16,000 others homeless. The government of Singapore rehoused them within 1 year. This changed the Singaporean perception of Housing and Development Board. They went ahead to build more than 50,000 apartments and housed close to 500,000 people through affordable rent. In 1964, the government started selling these housing units to citizens, where citizens were allowed to use their savings to purchase the units. These housing units were 20% cheaper than those in private market, and more than 80% of Singaporeans now live in public houses. And that is how they solved their housing problem, which many experts had said that it is one of the best housing models in the world.
well, that is how Singapore solved their housing problem, and now 90% of Singaporeans are home owners. Now, let's have a look at Kenya's situation.
Kenya has the largest slum in Africa, that is Kibera. However, Kibera is not the only slum in Kenya. There are others like Mukuru slums, Mathare slums, Chorimoyo slums, just to mention a few. Most people living in these slums are unemployed, and most of them depend on casual work to survive. However, not all people living in these slums are jobless. Some of them earn decent money, but out of convenience they choose to remain there. Housing levy that the government had imposed on Kenyans is similar to the Singapore's Central Provident Fund savings. For Kenya's case, however, it is not savings but rather a levy. During the first draft of 2023-2024 budget, they had suggested that the then 3% housing levy was refundable, but later it became a levy. It is clear that President William Ruto is copying Singapore's housing model. Yes, people were living in slums in Singapore before the formation of Housing and Development Board, And in Kenya, people are living in slums, and Ruto has brought up affordable housing plan. Singapore and Kenya, however, have many differences, which may affect Kenya's housing plan. Singapore has a relatively low population of about 5.5 million people, while Kenya has a population more than 50 million people, which is 10 times bigger than that of Singapore. Another huge difference is that there is huge unemployment rate in Kenya, unlike Singapore, which has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the world. And that is how President William Ruto is trying to copy Singapore's housing model. Remember, this is one of the most advanced countries in the world.
That is it for today's video. My goal in this channel is to bring you videos on policies, politics, economy, and business in general. My name is Caleb Korir, and this is Jedka Media. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, and like this video as well.